Thank you, Michael. Welcome, everybody. Looks like we're going to have a fairly intimate in-person session, so let's keep it casual. And if there's anything that pops up while we're going through it today, I just encourage you to raise your hand and be happy to engage you in our conversation. That shared, it really is my privilege and very proud to share with you my fellow panelists up here. Two lovely gentlemen that I've had an opportunity to get to know and work with over the past several years. I will introduce them to you now. Firstly, Greg Rachal. Greg is the president of the Black Surfers Collective, a native of Los Angeles. You guys both rubbed that in from a Yankee showing up here not too long ago. 32 years of his life serving his community as a fire captain, ensuring the safety and well-being of others. His passion for community engagement extends beyond the fire service as he co-founded the Black Surfers Collective, an organization committed to fostering inclusivity and diversity in the world of surfing. Now in retirement. Congratulations, sir. He continues to be a driving force for positive change, leveraging his experiences to inspire others and promote a sense of unity from the front lines of firefighting to breaking barriers in the surfing community. Greg Rachal's legacy of one of service, leadership, and a deep connection to the vibrant culture of Southern California.
Wow. Thank you.
Dig it.
Glad to be here, and I wish my mother was here to hear that.
Yeah.
That was sitting a little taller after hearing that. Thank you, Tom.
You're most welcome, sir. And Bob, welcome. Bob Ramirez is the president of the Gabrielino Tongva Springs Foundation. A native Californian, Bob's an architectural designer and a construction director of Ramirez Design, Inc. That has the same last name as your. Yeah, is it your company, sir? It's your company. He has a passion for the art of building and a love of adventure, which inspired him to explore the world in search of cultural enrichment. What began as a short trip grew into a multi-year exploration of indigenous cultures that were adapting to the modern world. Can't imagine anything perhaps more relevant or central to much of what we're discussing today. Bob brings his talents and his passion to direct the preservation of the Curuvungna Village Springs in West Los Angeles. I know Bob will be able to tell us a great deal about that site and its significance and its history and its presence here in our present day society. And through education, a repository of artifacts, and an active restoration of the springs, the revitalization of the village of Curuvungna is well underway. Welcome, Bob.
Pretty accurate. Thank you.
And fairly accurate. Seeing how you both gave me those bios, I would hope that they're fairly accurate. So that shared a little bit in print. We've had a chance to talk about what we're going to talk about today. Is there anything else you'd like to add at the start about yourself or?
Just born and raised in Los Angeles, in South Central Los Angeles, Crenshaw, West Adams. Lucky enough to be exposed to a lot of the outdoors. And like you said, 33 years in the fire service and now 13 years as at the helm of the Black Surfers Collective, bringing people from all over Los Angeles area out to the ocean and introducing them to the environment. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Very good. Bob?
Well, yes, I'm also a California native going back many, many generations. I have relatives that were here when the Spanish showed up, and I have relatives that walked here from Mexico 250 years ago, and they ended up in the San Gabriel Mission where my ancestors are buried. And so I'm a descendant of what we call the Gabrielino Indians. The natives were taken from throughout the LA Basin, Catalina Island, the valleys, and brought to San Gabriel Valley to build a mission. And the survivors of the Indian survivors became known as the Gabrielinos. And of course, they were woven in with the Spanish, and that culture endured and it lasted until the Mexican Revolution, which took over the lands from the missions and the Spanish crown and distributed amongst the Californios, who became the big rancheros. So when you drive around and you see Alvarado and Pico and Sepulveda, those are the remnant names of the ranchos until 1850s when the United States took over. This land has had three flags: the flag of Spain, the flag of Mexico, and the flag of the United States until now. Things are always changing. But because of that lineage, when I encountered the Gabrielino Tongva Springs, otherwise known as Kudavungna Village Springs, on the grounds of University High School on Barrington, believe it or not, there's a natural spring that produces 56,000 gallons of water every day, still to this day, emanating from the earth. And it was the center of an ancient Indian village called Kudavungna. 32 years ago, a foundation was created to protect and preserve this. And about 10 years ago, I got involved because it had been, I guess, neglected. And as a result, I was able to meet people like Tom. I didn't meet you because there's no surf there, but we do participate with replenishing the seawater with the thousands of gallons that flow into the bay. Nice. But Tom has been instrumental in really helping us achieve the goals of restoring the site with native plants. People in the audience, Lisa was involved as well. And I discovered that there's a great human need in our community for reconnecting with not just the past and the history, this is a historic site, but also with the earth and the water and the plants and the animals. It's a magical place. It's 2 acres that's fenced in within the grounds of Uni High. The landowner is unfortunately the LAUSD, the largest landowner in the city, and so it has complications. But I think we've really achieved an incredible amount of progress toward our goal of restoring the site and spreading the knowledge and wisdom of native plants throughout Southern California. So thank you, Tom, for being part of that.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Bob, and both your personal passion, both of your personal commitments, and that depth at which you approach your work have long been inspiring to me as well. And I'm glad that we're getting a chance to share this with some folks today. I'm going to put myself into California context. I grew up on the top of a mountain in eastern Pennsylvania. There was one kid my age I could ride my bike and go visit. I was surrounded by corn, cows, abandoned iron ore mines, and a secondary growth forest. Moved off the mountain in 9th grade, got pavement in 8th grade. Let me not skip that. Moved off the mountain and was like, oh, how exciting. No surprise I became a biologist and had a tremendous interest in the natural world because it was all around me. I think it's harder to find it here, LA, depending upon where you grow up. And so what I'm interested in here is maybe to focus in on the actions or activities, methods, the work that you guys do sort of day in, day out, the mechanics of it, the nuts and bolts, that aids folks in reconnection or connection with the natural world. I'm going to you first, Greg.
All right, I'll give it a shot. The connection is what's important, and I'd like to say a reconnection, but unfortunately, there's a lot of people throughout the U.S. and probably through the world, but definitely in Los Angeles area that don't feel included in the outdoors, don't feel that that's been something that they've been handed over the years, or it's been a part of their family or their upbringing. And like I said before, I'm fortunate enough to have been exposed and active in the outdoors since I was young. And I think that's my main focus, is making sure that communities throughout Los Angeles that may not feel included in the beach or the mountains or the desert, wherever it happens to be, that we start bringing them to these places and making it known that it's there for them, that there's opportunities to enjoy those areas, that they can bring their family, and that it's a safe space. And we do that as Black Surfers Collective by using the ocean. as the name says, we use surfboards and our equipment. My lovely wife is, as you know, she's the manager, and I do a lot of the operational stuff, but she makes all the connections, and politically, with different organizations, different politicians, and we make sure that we have the ability to transport, feed, have equipment, get people to the beach, let them play in the water, and then we use that water to teach them about the environment. Um, uh, Transportation is always a tough thing. A lot of people have to make that decision. Are we putting food on the table, a roof over our head, or are we, heading out to the beach? Parking is a thing. So all those aspects are a part of making sure that they know that the outdoors, in this case, the ocean and the beaches, are there for them. And that's what we do. We put them on surfboards, put them in the water, and watch them light up. And then we use that to speak to them about the environment. As I stated, I was born and raised 5, 6 miles inland. When you're raised there, if the beach isn't a part of your everyday life, you don't necessarily know how what you do inland affects the coastal areas. And so speaking to them when they're seeing the tractor going up, picking up trash, or they're lucky enough if there's doing a trash pickup on the beach, or they see others doing it, now you have a connection, right? You can talk to them about when you drop trash in town, it's going to go down the storm drains, and this is where it ends up. These are the things that we try to talk about. We talk about, we'll have Tom there talking about the ecosystem of the beach. People need to feel connected. They need to know what their connection is and how they can affect and how they have affected. And if we're going to create stewards of the ocean, young people that may grow up to vote, that's what we do. And I think I covered most of it, but
Going to answer all 5 questions in one swoop if you're not careful.
Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. Bob, sort of the same question to you. What is the Gabrielino Tongva Springs Foundation? How do you focus interest in your work, or how do you get folks engaged in that reconnection or connection through what you do?
Well, for the past 32 years, we open to the public on the first Saturday of every month from 10 to 3, and everybody's welcome to come and visit and volunteer. And it's amazing. I think last Saturday we probably had 200 people. A lot of students from UCLA. I didn't see many people from LMU, but you guys are all welcome, of course. And they show up not knowing what to expect, but they seem to be really taken by the beauty and the majesty of this particular ancient site. It is a state historical landmark because it was where the Portola expedition, the first Europeans, encountered the native people. At this spot, as recorded in Crespi's diary and Costanzo's diary, they were greeted by friendly natives who were unarmed and were welcomed with food and water. And I think that sort of informs the way that we present ourselves to the world. We're welcoming and friendly. Perhaps maybe a little too friendly back then, because look what happened, but it was almost inevitable. The Spanish were making their way up north, set by the King of Spain, because the Russians were coming down from Alaska. So, would you rather be speaking Russian or Spanish? I guess is one way to look at it. But history, we can't unravel it. It is what it is. It's a state historical landmark. It's also an archaeological site. When this campus was built in 1924, they realized it was an Indian village. When they did the YMCA building about 10 years ago, they uncovered lots of artifacts, including human remains, which are reburied at the site. So it is a sacred site registered with the California State Native American Heritage Commission. Has a lot of protections. And when people come in, they're overwhelmed by some of these majestic trees that were planted 70, 80, maybe 100 years ago. We have the state champion, Montezuma cypress, We have the national champion, the largest tree of its kind, Eucalyptus saligna. We have a magnificent dragon trees. These are not native, but they're heritage trees. Our goal is to restore the site with native plants. These trees we're leaving alone, but volunteers get to pick up a rake, pick up a shovel, pick up tools, and participate in the restoration of the site. We have now probably over 200 species of native plants. And like I said, there's a great human need, as you find, for people to get off their phones, get out of their rooms and get into the earth, even if it's a little wet and damp and rainy. It's wonderful. And to see that energy, I think it's a type of restorative justice, if you will. So that's, it's that simple. Just come, grab a rake and get to work. And then everything unfolds from there, I believe.
Thank you both. I first came to LA in 1998, had a job working for UCLA at the time at the aquarium underneath the Santa Monica Pier, which was purposely built for youth, for elementary school students to come down and kind of meet their ocean, meet their marine neighbors. We were working very closely with an elementary school in Watts, and these kids came in and they were just focus on anything. I'm like, all right, here's a picture. Like the animals that are right here, out here in the ocean. And they were like, "You mean that one out there? That one that we saw when we pulled up?" I'm like, "Yeah, that one." They're like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "Wait, how many been to the ocean before? Like, raise your hands." There was like 2 hands that went up. I was like, "Okay, leave your backpacks right where they are. We're going outside." Teacher was like, "This isn't part of the curriculum." I'm like, "Oh, it is today. You can talk to my boss later. She'll fire me if she decides."
Right.
So that wonderment, that first touch, that expansion of an understanding and appreciation for who I am, what I am in these various contexts in the natural world, I think was something that I took for granted. Glad to see that many of us are making these investments to get folks involved in that. I'll speak for some of our work at the Coastal Research Institute and that of the Bay Foundation. A lot of applied science, a lot of restoration going along our coast, trying to push back against sea level rise, ocean acidification, create habitat so that biodiversity can be maintained in these spaces where it has become fragmented or we've lost it altogether. And for a while, for me, that was the push, right? On habitat, get it done. And then I realized I really couldn't fix a place if I also didn't fix the people of that place. I had to open that space back up again and bring those folks in. And that our investment here with College of Science and Engineering, investing in students, investing in faculty to explore this landscape, to do applied science, to elucidate those truths that science has really interesting capacity to do so, so that we can make smart investments and make the city of tomorrow a better, more just place, with perhaps more connection. What you're sharing resonates with me very I think we did address my second question, which was sort of the value of purpose behind these connections or reconnection. So then maybe like a pro-con kind of thing. When I think of City of Tomorrow, and I don't mean to challenge Michael because I think he was the one that came up with it. I was like, well, tomorrow is tomorrow. Today was tomorrow yesterday. I'm not sure that that's the future that I'm imagining. So I want to kick it out a generation or two. Put us into 2050. LA with connection and reconnection, or LA without it. Do you see your work having the ability, or do you see that resonance of what you're generating, making a difference at a societal level?
Well, let's go back. Let's go back to yesterday. I've been here 64 years now. When I grew up in Los Angeles was very segregated, very segregated. It is still quite segregated, but it was more so when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s. And when you talk about disenfranchisement, right? I mean, there was just no connection or very little connection. There was some Black communities, some Hispanic communities that were on the coast, but small and getting pushed out, right? And so if you lived anywhere east of the 405, you were basically cut off. You had no connection to the coastal areas. And we're talking about, the United States of America post, just post the civil rights movement. So there wasn't a lot of openness for people to go and share in the outdoors, whether it be the desert, the mountains, or the sea. Beaches had been segregated, all those things. And so over my lifetime, there's been a change, as we see with gentrification and the mixing of just based on the way houses are expensive, housing and everything else, the communities are mixing. And I think with that, if people aren't getting pushed out, there's going to be even more mixing where people will start to share some of those spaces and start to understand what other people are doing. If you're in an enclosed community, you're only knowing what you know. And, when I was growing up, there was very few people that went to the beach, very few people that skied, very few people that went to the mountains, whatever, hiking. And so I think talking about the city of the future, if we extrapolate from what we've seen, it's going to continue to mix. And there's going to be people coming from all over. The housing is going to mix, the communities are going to mix, and then it's about sharing those spaces and sharing your interest. And when you have people around you that are doing the different things, I think it's much easier to start to get a grasp of it, right? And feel like it's reachable for you. So does that help?
Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely.
That's what I see.
Bob, same question to you, if you want to take a swing at it.
What was the question again?
So
Yesterday,
if I'm,
tomorrow.
yeah, yesterday, tomorrow, or, if we weren't here, if you weren't here doing this work today, what gets lost, or isn't rediscovered, or, do you think that what you're doing is going to really add up?
When people come up to the Springs and they spend some time there, I kind of remind them that we're only here for this moment. This is all we have today. We have a tenuous relationship with the landlord. They could kick us out 60-day notice. This is the way it is. All the land that was once Tongva, owned by that, or it wasn't owned, but it has been taken over and urbanized. So the Gabrielino Tongva people have no land at all. That's why they don't have federal recognition, for a lot of reasons, because of the Spanish, the Mexican, the Americans, but mainly urbanization has, I was a kid growing up. We used to have tree houses. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley. My dad grew up on Compton Boulevard. He was born in Cucamonga, as was all my lineage going back. That's the ancestral village connected with the mission. But in 1929, they decided, once my great grandmother died, they moved to Compton Boulevard, and the house is still there. We didn't spend much time at the beach. I wanted to learn how to surf. I had some blonde-haired friends that were good surfers, but I didn't feel very welcome, trying to get down to some of these places. And I didn't even go to Lunada Bay back then because,
Right.
and localism has been an issue with surfers. So I'm really excited and amazed that you are able to get out there and enjoy the waves with everybody else. I think it's a human, it's a human resource for all of us. But things have changed yesterday. In terms of the work that we're doing today, what kind of an impact will that have tomorrow? It's too early to say. I'll let you know tomorrow. But I think it does plant a seed. And that's kind of what we're doing. And when you plant a seed, you're doing it right now at this moment. Maybe you come back the next day and you have shoots and sprouts. And that's, I think, a metaphor for how to approach life with young people coming in, not young people, all people coming in, and to have that notion that we're on a continuum of life. We're not going backwards, we're going forward. Things are always growing. And you see that when you go there every day, everything's a little different. Every day it's a bit different. The plants are operating on a different time scale than humans. They can't move around, but they do move, and they have we have relationships with everything that's alive, and these plants and these trees, you can feel it when you're there. I think that resonates, and I think the idea of learning about our native environment, what people are doing in this room here. That I notice you have white sage here. These are plants that grow freely throughout. I think spreading the knowledge of native plants will have a big impact in the future. We're creating pollination corridors. We're planning on closing the Santa Monica Airport at the end of 2028 and removing that runway and building a giant spiral ziggurat encompassed with native plants. And I think people are behind that idea. They understand the value of native plants and how they promote life. So I think that's, it's a still small dream, I guess, or still small prayer for the future. But you do what you can do today. Plant a seed, you paddle out, and I think that puts us on a nice path forward.
I think just to add a little something,
Please.
I think, what Bob was saying about planting the seed, I think that's what's most important. We take mostly young people out, into the ocean, but it ends up, over the year, it'll be, this young child came out, but then all of a sudden their older brother and sister, and then by the end of the summer, we're taking their whole family into the ocean. And that's planting that seed, right? And we always speak to them after they come out of the water and ask them, what are you going to tell your friends when you go back home? What are you going to tell your family? How exciting was this for you? How special was it? Because you're sending them back. You're right. You've created this new person that has now experienced the outdoors, and now you send them back home to water that seed, right? To start talking about it and build it up, and they start bringing their friends or talking about it, and that excitement, it grows. And like you said, we may only see the family grow, but we're hoping that that city of the future is going to have a whole community of people that will be connected in one way or another. And we always say we may not be making everybody surfers, but hopefully we're connecting them to the land. And so if they won't surf, maybe they'll ski. If they won't ski, maybe they'll hike or mountain bike or whatever it happens to be. But we've whet their appetite for the outdoors, and now they can build on their own. And once the plant starts to grow, right, it may bring in other plants, and the whole ecosystem is connected to it, right? So there we have it.
Reconnecting people, and then they, through their personal connections, are messengers and emissaries for their experiences that you're helping provide them.
There it is.
And I will speak in a reflection to this, and it'll help me go from people to plants as well, and shamelessly promote our work, which is okay. It's important work, so I guess I should promote it. But we had a troop of Girl Scouts who were pre-K kids, like this big, and there's 6 of them, and my boss is looking at me like, you're going to go spend the afternoon with a bunch of 4-year-old girls down on the beach? I'm like, yep, absolutely. Had a great time. And then the troop has grown a little older. They're now in 2nd and 3rd grade, and they're getting autonomy and agency through their scout program. And they're like, okay, so what do you guys want to work on? And they're like, we really loved going to the beach and working with those plants. And so that's what we want to do. Just went through a huge public process. We're going to set up, 38 or so acres of native vegetated sand dunes across Santa Monica State Beach, which is a beach that most people don't imagine existed. We get into the details of it. It really didn't ever. So we're not restoring something, we're establishing it. But those Girl Scouts were sitting there at the city council going, put this on my beach. This is important to me. And speaking in that first person and powerfully. And I know that from studies that are done about what puts people like us into gear in perhaps leadership roles is that personal experience when that one teacher that reached us, that one trip to the beach, that just resonated, connected me to something that I didn't ever want to let go. And so for me, when I think about that city of tomorrow, we are creating these ambassadors with this experience that end up with this drive and this passion. That can't be. Guys in the audience are great. I'm going to get to you pretty soon, I promise. I just got to pull a little bit more out of these two while I can. It is about that leadership role. I don't know when you become a leader. I don't even know if you'd be comfortable being referred to as one. But I certainly see you both in that space. Was there a surprise that came with that? Was there one morning you woke up and went down to the beach or showed up at the springs and went, oh, wait, now I'm the authority in this space, or the sage or the bard, the person that folks were looking to for an answer? And two-part question. So have you had an experience, something like that? And then what was that answer, or what did it prompt you to think on maybe a different path?
Well, first of all, I'm a father and grandfather.
What's up, Jackson?
Oh, what's up, Jackson? And it's and as you stated, I've spent 33 years in the fire service, where there's a lot of leadership there. Once you get on, there's always somebody coming up behind you. So there's a lot of teaching, educating, leading. And then I spent the last 15 years as a fire captain, training, teaching, leading. But once I retired, it wasn't something that I was really thinking about, that I was going to be a leader in anything. Yes, I had already been doing the Black Surfers Collective for the last 10 years previous, but it was really about us as a surf club bringing people out to the beach, knowing how fortunate we were, bringing them to the ocean and introducing them to surfing, and just feeling like we did something. We've just finished our second season as a nonprofit. And with that nonprofit status came just a multitude of things, many more organizations that were willing to invest in us, that wanted to work with us. We were able to build our equipment cache to reach more people. And with that, at the same time, there was this huge growth of the Black and Brown community, and just a broad swath of the communities all over Los Angeles, of people coming to the ocean. And they found that they wanted to be with us, and we were happy to have them. And so now we've got this huge group of volunteers, from teenagers through adults, that have come out. They are a part of our organization. They do help us. And through that, yes, I guess I am a leader. And it kind of happened around me. And all of a sudden, when you turn around and people are looking towards you to be a leader, to let them know what you need from them, um, you're not only obligated, but you should be excited to step up and have something to teach them, to tell them. And it's been definitely a new lease for me. I mean, you know me, Tom, I'm pretty humble. I was just happy to be doing what we do. But when people start calling and asking you questions, and um, telling you how happy they are to be a part of what you have going on, you got to build with that. And I think that's what's happened, at least in our neck of the woods, and what we're doing. And what we've built is amazing. It lights me up every day, and it wakes me up, and I'm excited to get, we're in our down season right now because it's wintertime, so I get to surf more and do the things I want to do. But I'm also really excited for every season as it comes back, because we know that there's going to be I mean, some of the people that we've taught to surf are now our instructors, are now our volunteers, and they bring their family out. So it's that kind of thing. You know, it builds every year. Somebody that we may have given lessons to last year is now coming out to volunteer this year. And we're able to reach more schools, more community groups. Like you said, you know, there's people that have never seen the ocean or been to the ocean before, and then we put them on a surfboard. And when you're a part of that, keeps you coming back, you know?
I'm with you. How about you, Bob?
Question.
Very fair. You're now a leader, whether you want it to be or not.
Yeah.
So is there a realization in that? Was there an aha moment? Or is there something to share with others who are, you know, endeavoring to imagine where they may end up in that space as they progress?
Well, you know, just be careful what you jump into because you never know where it's going to lead. And I never, you know, actually planned or hoped, you know, to be a leader. That's a term that, you know, we could use loosely.
Yeah.
We're, you know, we're leading people. But for me, I felt that I had an obligation and a duty and a responsibility to steward this piece of land that had been, you know, it had it had struggled for many, many years. You know, it's a mom and pop, it's a 501c3. There's a lot of interpenetrating issues. And that's probably the most remarkable part of this particular journey. I didn't expect to be even, you know, here today with all these people. This is all as a result of me getting the keys to the springs and going, okay, let's start cleaning this up. And for a couple of years, I was there all alone, which was not all alone. We had, you know, some volunteers coming in because of the pandemic. Remember, there was a pandemic a few years ago. Everything got shut down. I know we don't remember much from yesterday, but it was shut down. The school was shut down for 2 years, and I was able to bring in some heavy equipment and do things that needed to be done without, you know, the principal keeping an eye on things because we are within this high school, which is very strange and very challenging. But I've ended up having to deal with the school, the administration, the LAUSD, the Native American community, the Native community, the local community, the different tribes, the different Gabrielino, Tongva, even the Quiche. And we welcome everybody. We say, this is our land. Let's show people that we care. Let's have some pride and try to reconnect and learn about a lot of this culture was pretty much wiped out by the Spanish. So the idea to kind of reconnect to the core values. And fortunately, there are a lot of elders and leaders in the Tongva Gabrielino community. They're spread out. It's a big piece of terrain here. Not everybody gets along. It's not like one nation or one tribe, but there's wonderful individuals that have a deep reverence for the ancestors. So I feel personally, spiritually, that I'm like almost called to speak up for the creatures, for the plants that do not have a voice. And you know, if that's leadership, I don't know, probably in some way, but also training the next generation. There's, you know, it's not just the old folks, but we need to get these younger kids inspired and give them an opportunity. Your foundation has been really helpful by helping sponsor internships at the Springs. And I see, you know, the development of people coming together and also gathering. Like surfing is great. It's kind of, you know, it's I can't call it a communal activity though. It's kind of you're bored and but it's a spiritual thing and it disconnects you. But in this case, you find the Kodavunga means where we gather in the sun. So we see people gathering and sharing and connecting. And that's what I meant by this great human need to answer that and to encourage the next generation that you can do it. You just get started, get some plants, get a shovel, you know, you can spread this energy out through the community. The goal is to rewild the city of Los Angeles as it slowly, you know, fades back in time. It will be reforested with native plants, you know, pockets at a time. That's the goal. So here we have a chance to learn about that and to reconnect. So maybe that's leadership, but we'll do it as long as we can, as long as we can keep those gates open.
I appreciate that you're struggling with me hanging that moniker on you, Bob. Must be a bit of an anti-establishmentarianism at heart. Love that word. That sounds easy one to spit out. I know when I came to LA, I bought a surfboard before I had a bed. That's how eager I was to get out there. Already had an appreciation for nature. My friends, when they learned that I was heading off to Los Angeles, were like, "No, like don't, no, Tom, no, man, that's not you. That's your. We imagined you on the top of some mountain somewhere in some place we can't pronounce. You know, convening with the flora and the fauna." And I was like, "Well, if we can fix LA, what can't we do?" And I think for me, the term leadership is about a vision that you hold, and then a commitment and effort to make it realized. And I find Brene Brown speaks fantastically on this subject. And for me, what sticks with me when I think of her was like being a leader is about constantly being vulnerable. What you're espousing, modeling, aspiring folks to be, you now have to live up to that. And you will be challenged by folks who either aren't believing it, want to have some explanation as to why they should commit if it's not experiential, and that experience doesn't get them there. So that's much of what I was driving at. And I do think experience is the teacher, often, or at least that is one of my favorite teachers, to be sure. And again, I think this is something that we try to model through the Coastal Research Institute here at LMU, where we're looking to our faculty who embody leadership. We look to our students who are leaders, and try to give them some more tools and more experience so that they can develop more fully. I think their aspirations. We're all interested in producing that city of tomorrow, and the natural world is part of it. I think the being the marine guy, the ocean guy, my happiest place is underwater, 100 feet down or more, at times. And when I talk to people about the ocean, they're like, "Oh yeah, like up in Monterey." I'm like, "No, like the ocean right here." Like, "Oh yeah, the mountains." They're like, "Yeah, up in the Sierras." I'm like, "Or right there." So LA, wake up. There's a lot here. And I think that those native plants really become that identifier. And I'll just quickly speak to beaches, and then I'd like to open it up to the crowd. It is some of the more visible work that we do at the Bay Foundation with the students and faculty here, working on our beaches and putting back native vegetation, and now recovering endangered butterflies by the thousands down in Manhattan Beach, endangered least terns having nesting opportunities on our beaches, threatened snowy plovers, and the conversations are amazing with folks. They're like, "I didn't know that there was butterflies down here." I'm like, "Well, you wouldn't have seen too many. They're not endangered for no reason. They're few far between, but here's their recovery." And now they can reimagine that future that I was sketching out. They can see it because they've now experienced it. And the next generation picks up as far as we moved it, and keeps toting that bale. Right on. That said, folks, y'all made your way down here. Very nice to see you. I know we've got folks online as well. I don't know if they can enter questions through Mike, who's back there, but we've got a microphone. I'm happy to bring it around the room, but I wanted to give you a chance to throw some questions at these guys or at me, and do our best to share. Anybody? Okay, Lisa, let's go.
Yes.
Pardon, my pants got caught on.
This was wonderful. Thank you all for sharing. I certainly am seeing the coast in a different light through your three sets of eyes. Bob, I wanted you, and I had to step out for a moment. I wanted you to elaborate more on the springs of Currabunga Springs. because the last time I was there, I remember being blown away by the idea that you could just dip a glass into the water and drink it. It's perfectly safe. And that just, in this city, that just blows my mind. If you could share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we're the site, if anybody has driven up Barrington between Santa Monica Boulevard and Wilshire, you'll encounter a hill. Or if you go in there direction, you'll drop down the hill. That's because there's an earthquake fault that runs right through the high school. They had to tear down the gym in the 70s. They realized it was straddling a fault. And because of the fault, the water that is captured up in the Santa Monica Mountains, it takes about between 40 and 70 years, we've discovered, for this water to make its way through the aquifer where it hits that strata, the fault, which it creates an impermeable layer of rock, and the spring comes to the surface. There used to be springs all along these coastal ranges. In fact, Rodeo Drive, we've heard of Rodeo. It used to be called Rodeo de las Aguas by the Spanish. There were a lot of springs that coalesced. All of the springs had been paved over and undergrounded. There's another spring on the school campus. 10 years ago, they shut it down because they were concerned. They found a minute, like 5 parts per billion of a dry cleaning solution from Wilshire Boulevard. They shut that down because the LAUSD, if you're listening, is a culture of fear and lawyers. So that's been one of the biggest challenges. This spring, we have it tested regularly. It is incredibly pure and clean water. You can drink right from the water, right from this source. We measured the flow at around 56,000 gallons a day. Most of it ends up in your ocean. Thank you. Some of it we actually use a solar powered water pump to move some of this water to irrigate what we call the Mesoamerican gardens, where we grow plants from the Americas to teach kids where their cornflakes come from. And a lot of kids don't know where food comes from, but there you can see corn, beans, squash, and chili. So we do respectfully use this water. Which is sacred, because I tell the visitors there's nothing more sacred in the cosmos than water. We can't live without it. It connects us all. The fact that you're in the middle of the city and you can see skyscrapers on Wilshire and you see this water coming out of the earth, it is astonishing. I had a hydrologist from the USGS come, and he broke out into tears because he had never seen the water coming. He tests water all around, but he's never seen it bubbling up out of the earth. And you can actually observe it coming out of this, little masonry circle that was created. And it is remarkable that this still exists. And we're trying our whole goal is to protect this place from development. I think 25 years ago, the Barrington Plaza was going to do a big underground basement, and they were going to dewater the site. And the foundation, led by Angie Barnes and Durame and her family and Uni High, a lot of people got together to fight the developer, and they had to shut down the development because of the springs were going to be threatened. So this is completely unique. It's completely singular in our city. It is something that, I tell people that Americans don't seem to care that much about history. They think everything is brand new and covered over with concrete. This represents, the antiquity, not just of the native people, but, the natural history of our region, where this is the last remnant of that and the last reminder. And if we can expand the footprint, there's a vacant piece of land that used to be the continuation school. The enrollment of LAUSD has dropped, in half in the last 20 years. So there's a lot of what they call underutilized land. And we're kind of squabbling with them over parking. It's so silly. But, all the support we can get. If anybody here is a land use attorney or knows Alberto Carvalho and wants to have dinner with him, let me know. It's a struggle. It's, it's not just the crabgrass and the note the squirm and the crayfish. It's the institutions that we also have to deal with. But I would invite everybody to please come and visit, and you'll see what Lisa means by being overwhelmed by this by this the natural beauty of the springs.
When are those
Yeah.
events again, Bob?
So the first Saturday of every month, everybody is welcome from 10 to 3, if we can get the gate open.
You know, Tom, Bob made a really good point, and that is that a lot of the people that live in the Los Angeles area, they don't know where vegetables come from. They don't know where water comes from. You know, our water comes from two sources, you know, coming into the LA area. This is a desert and can easily be cut off. You mentioned the fault line. We have faults all around us, and our water can be cut off from the Colorado and from Northern California. A lot of people don't know where our water comes from. We do have springs, and but not enough to support the huge population that is LA. Um, and these are the things that we need to teach the young people. We need to teach them what's going on with the land. How do we live with the land and not, you know, it's all paved over. My father used to call it the concrete jungle, you know, because they've just come and paved over everything, including the LA River, which is a water source. And people have talked about, you know, taking up some of that concrete, repopulating the aquifers and things like that. It's very difficult to do when every square foot of land is worth so much money. But we have to educate the young people. This is going to be their land. This is going to be their land, and very quickly. I mean, our time is almost over, right? And you know, like you said, we're on a short lease, you know, from the landlord. So it's important that we share all of this bit, and the recreation is just the lead in, right? It's the lead in to what's important about living with the land. The ecosystems, every one of them are fragile, but we can rebuild them if we try and if we start putting some time and effort into it.
I also just wanted to add about getting back to the springs. It was the source of water for the city of Santa Monica when it was first created in 1875. There were 2 springs, and I have a map in the museum from 1875 showing a water main going from the springs to what is now 25th and Wilshire, Douglas Park. And there was a little water feature. Today, the city of Santa Monica gets 75% of its water from the aquifer. It's not connected to the greater LA. LA, when they built the Owens Valley aqueduct, a lot of these municipalities had to become absorbed into the city of LA. Beverly Hills and Santa Monica, maybe Culver City resisted that. They dug wells. Otherwise, it would have been, you know, part of this big city. So today, the city of Santa Monica processes 10 million gallons of water a day at their treatment plant 3 blocks away from the springs. And it's a huge amount of energy, but the water has won awards. If you live in Santa Monica, please don't buy any more plastic water bottles. You can drink right out of the tap. It's actually incredibly clean. It's processed. They adjust the flavors and all that, but it's very high quality water. City of LA, there's a few different water districts. One of the main aquifers, I believe, is tainted, contaminated by, Exide, battery treatment plants. But the water that we have is exceptionally pure. And I invite you all to come, bring your jugs, we'll fill you up. And the other thing we've been doing is restoring the ponds with native, not just native plants, but reintroducing the native arroyo chub, which are the minnows that used to live throughout the low gradient streams of the LA basin. But 30 years ago, somebody introduced an invasive red swamp crayfish. And once they're in the water system, it's impossible to eradicate. But we have recipes. You guys would enjoy that. Yes, we do recycle the crayfish. We capture them to promote our chub. So, yeah, living on the land, that's what we're here for.
All right.
Questions from the audience, sir?
Thank you both, everybody, for being here. Thank you. I've been really enjoying the conversation. In the prior session this morning, the word healing came up, and you guys have been talking about connection, reconnection, and I'm wondering if in the work, and this is to all 3 of you, if you feel that word applies to the work that you're doing, because it sounds like you're all very committed to this. I'm wondering if healing, that concept, ever comes into the way you think about your work.
Uh, for sure. I mean, we actually consider ourselves healers. You know, we are bringing people to the ocean. There's a concept of the blue mind, which says that anytime you are in, around, or on water, it is a soothing surface, a soothing process for your soul and your body. Um, everybody that spends time in the water knows how good it makes them feel. You don't realize that you can actually bring people and help them heal with that. Um, we have introduced surf therapy through our program over the last this last season. I'm working with first responders, retired first responders right now. I'd like to expand it into the ranks of people that are still on the job. But my wife is working with women that have needs, whether it be trauma or whatever it is, and bringing them to the water as well. And it's huge. You know, it's there. It's something that you can tangibly see. You know the feeling that it gives you, and it's about sharing that with others. And I was thinking that I was just healing myself and that I was sharing that, but what we found is that we were seeing the difference in the young children. Like Tom said, you have young people that have maybe never been to the ocean or never don't even swim. They come and they're totally excited or absolutely terrified looking at the ocean moving, and they may have been told that it's a place that is very dangerous, which it can be. But when we bring them to the water, we put them in the water. It's amazing. You see them calm, you see them smile, you see them change, and so that healing is there, right? And so that's something that can be passed on as well. And so when you have that feeling of what it's done for you and the healing that it's done, and you can share that again, now we've got a seed, right? We're planting that seed, and we can continue to share that.
I think that's a word that we didn't bring up today, but thank you. That was a word that we're actually thinking of incorporating into our mission statement, because the world is is a great need of healing. The local Native community is also in need of healing. We're all in need of healing. When we come to the springs, there's I don't know if it's magical or mystical, or it's maybe the blue dream,
Mind.
the blue mind.
Yes.
There's something that happens if you have a difficult conversation, or you need to speak, standing right near where that water is flowing. It changes the discourse, because I think it connects you with some type of eternity. When you think this water is a gift, it's not asking for anything at all. It's a gift, and it comes up to the surface and it flows downstream. And I can't explain how the process works, but the some of the connections that we've been able to make, or that have been made, through my association with the Springs. We were invited to do a healing garden, a memorial garden at the San Gabriel Mission, working with the Archdiocese, working with the San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians to reconsider the traumatic history of missionization. And they gave us the central courtyard of the San Gabriel Mission, where we created a garden of native plants, recycled timber to make a ramada. We brought in a giant stone, a carved replica of a cogstone, which are these enigmatic 10,000-year-old stone objects that they find, a little further south. We had a massive, 5-foot diameter one carved out of granite, dropped in with the crane, water flowing out into a basin filled with native plants, and it's a big draw for the mission. So I encourage you also to connect with the mission San Gabriel. They're doing their best to tell the story in a way that is more truthful. But the idea of having a healing garden in the center of the mission resonates. And that is a direct result of our efforts at the Springs. So we do have a team, my son and a bunch of other people that are, extending themselves out into the community, taking this message of revitalization, restoration, reconnection, reciprocity, respect, relationship, and extending that out into the greater community. So yeah, healing vibes all around. Thank you.
If I could add a little something to that. Unfortunately, I come from a community that is very cut off from their homeland. And, it's been hundreds of years that we've been cut off from our homeland. And I've always had an admiration for the indigenous people because they've had that connection. And I think that the healing starts when you start bringing people to whatever land they're living in and having them spend time in it, whether it's in the water, the mountains, the hills, taking off your shoes, connect up, walk in the dirt, walk on the grass, sharing the outdoors with people and having that connection is going to help them connect to the land, but it's also going to have them have a better focus to healing what we see we've done to the land. And so it takes me back to the original statement that I was saying, creating people that may get out and vote or people that may pick up a tool and work on the land and help do some work to fix some of the damage that we've done over the years. We're starting to figure out what we've done. Now we have to figure out how to fix it, right? Or if we have the intent to fix it. And we're only going to do that if we start turning people on to how beautiful the land is and what it has to offer them. And there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that feel pretty cut off from that. And it's going to take all of us that care about the land to bring them back and make it a part of their life.
I might offer a punctuation point on what you both shared. I'm not a physician or can't claim to have a thorough understanding of physiology, but when you put human beings in a natural setting and in nature, their blood pressure goes down, their stress hormones drop. So there is magic to it. I know I feel rejuvenated when I'm in nature, and as I describe to people, I'm an outdoor cat. Just my office has always felt like a box. But there's no doubt there's real healing when folks get out there and experience nature. Without a question.
So to follow up, so then looking at the motto behind you guys, modeling the city of tomorrow, is then I think the conclusion I've come to from this conversation is that the city of tomorrow has to do a better job of integrating what I'm seeing on that slide everywhere, not just in isolate, not just at the Springs, not just at
Right. And
everywhere.
Yeah. So I agreed. I fully agree. And Greg said that we're, short timers or what have you. I get it. I'm getting a little long in the tooth as well. And I recognize I've only got a few more projects left, big ones that'll count in my career. And I thought that I was going to be able to do that, but we're not there yet. And I've had to wrestle with that at times. It's not been an easy process. National Geographic did a piece a few years back, which was terrific, and it was taking you down Vermont from the Hollywood Hills, near the observatory, all the way down near the port, and the trees disappear, and it gets hotter, and it gets noisier, and it becomes more stressful, and the inequities of how this landscape was developed and all the policies and other pressures that have put people where they are and then have affected entire communities and lines of families are very obvious. I'm sure it's come up in other places in the symposium, but in case it hasn't, trees in your landscape, lower your stress hormones, but it's also what's going to help push back against inland heat effect and the increasing heating that we're going to witness and experience with climate change. So it's the best and greatest solution. And the tree huggers had it absolutely right. And at the same time, when you go and you sit down and talk to folks who work the city or the county of Los Angeles or other municipalities, trees are messy. They're expensive. They're hard. They require water. They require breaking up some of that impervious surface and giving them a chance. And it's not that simple. So I think creating that demand for it is a big part of this. And I hope that when folks come out and visit Kuruvunga or have an experience in the water or see that the beach has flowers, literally that simple, that they start to imagine where else can that happen. And I think that for me, that's, as you put it very well, city of tomorrow. Far more natural environment than it is today.
Is there still Tomorrowland at Disneyland? Is that still happening?
Yeah,
I
and
remember
it's
that.
full of perchlorate and
Okay.
rocket ships.
That was Tomorrowland.
Yeah.
Right. I think we need to reverse that, right? So I think we got about as modern as we need to be. We need to
Yesterday
come on
land.
back.
What about little
There
yesterday
it is.
land? Let's peel it back a notch, a century or two.
Thank you all for being here. Tom, thanks for convening this. I've heard a little bit about both of you from Tom because I work with him, but just to hear your stories and everything really does resonate on a new level. I am also a native Angeleno, but I grew up in a space where it felt like you had to leave to find the nature and you had to, go to Yosemite or, these places that have been put aside. And I think only now moving back and being an adult and really realizing it is all around us. And so I'm hoping I have students here, but I'm hoping that we're giving them that message, right? To find the awe and the wonder in all the little things that are around us and to understand them. So we're an environmental science department. And so we're learning about the why and the how from a scientific perspective. But listening to you, I'm realizing that what we're missing is all the culture and the not just the humanity, because we do have environmental studies and we do have a lot of that kind of study of how humans interact, but like for Los Angeles and being a university in Los Angeles, understanding the native component or just the cultural component of our exposure and our relationship with nature, how would you recommend, I think about student programming, right? So being a chair of a department and running the CRI with Tom, like how would you think that our students can understand and have that relationship with culture and the culture nature, a component that you're both speaking to?
I think the best way is for the students to try to understand exactly the spot that they're on right now here today. This was once the village of Guashna, right here where we are. It was 25 years ago, they discovered burial grounds right here. That was a big major event. The Los Angeles River used to come right here and carve out this bluff, which we call Westchester. And as a result, this was a vibrant lagoon full of life, full of fish. The village has been here maybe 10,000 years. So their students have to understand that they're not the only people that have ever been here. People have lived here for thousands of years. And to try to imagine, it's hard for us to fathom time longer than our grandparents or our grandchildren. But if they can have that exercise and go out here on the bluff and try to imagine all of this, all the building, all the concrete gone, and the life that was here on the ground, buried under our feet. They removed the burials. They're still down there. We're living in ancient villages throughout LA. There were over 400 villages. Some of the names are still with us. Cahuenga, Tahunga, Cucamonga, Topanga, Kuruvunga. These are places that we need to resurface and to try to remember as these villages that had alliances and kinships. And I think that's the future of some of the fractious community and the territorial claims, is to go, let's everybody focus on their village. Tend to your garden. A garden can be anywhere. It could be on your little patio in a little 10-inch clay pot. That's how you get started. So I think getting them out of the buildings, out to the earth, barefoot, wet, jump in the water, get in the mud, you know, even if you get stung by a bee, that's a blessing.
There you go. Hey, yeah.
In addition to those villages, Bob, which, starting to understand, and I think that's part of what you're talking about, maybe it's the process of that, Nicole. Right? Van Nuys Boulevard, Wilshire Boulevard, the Sepulveda Pass have been under human traffic for thousands of years. Right? Those were those corridors, those were the trails that the footpaths that these folks migrated across through the seasons to trade, to communicate, to socialize, and I think that's also an exciting part of that landscape because it puts it in motion.
Yeah, maybe before we go into tomorrow, it'd be good to examine yesterday and the past and look at ancient maps and try to understand. Yes, the Wilshire Boulevard and Sepulveda Boulevard were the major trade routes that crossed that created Cudavungna. The springs are located right on that trade route. When the Spanish came, they were trying to get up the coast, and the natives said, "Nah, you're not going to make it. It's kind of rocks coming down, but go through the pass," and they show them the way through the Sepulveda Pass. But these are trade routes from Catalina Island to Pavungna, which is now on the grounds of Long Beach College, I think. Throughout, people walked, and now we have streets and boulevards named after some saints, I think, but named after prominent. Well, there was the aristocratic ranchos. So there's Alvarado and Pico and Sepulveda, and then when the Americans came, it became Barrington and Wilshire and layers and layers. There's layers and layers of history right here. And if they can dip back into that past, I think it'll make them better humans for the future.
I think it's really important that we look to the youth. One of the things I live right next to a school, and again, I'm walking around barefoot on the front lawn of the school. But when I look in the school, the whole school is concrete, right? It's all tarred over and concreted over. This is supposed to be our places of learning, but yet there's no connection to the land. And I think we need to kind of think about starting there, encouraging people to get their feet on the grass, get their feet on the ground, go out, smell the trees, get stung by a bee, see what's growing, watch the squirrels, whatever it is. I love that stuff. But if you live in the house all the time, you're not going to see that. You're going to see it on TV. You'll see it on your phone, but you're not going to experience it. And so that you've now lost that real connection to the environment. And I think we need to start looking at the youth. And those youth are going to be parents in just a minute, right? I mean, I was, and it has to start there. It has to start at the base. And then once families start enjoying the outdoors or the environment and seeing what's going on, now we got something to build on.
So like ENVS 212, we just go play volleyball and run around on the beach and splash in the water. That sounds like a good 2-credit course to me.
I think I've heard the questions that I've had in my mind. I've heard three of you share, and it's very encouraging. Nikki Giovanni, poet laureate, wrote once, "1 ounce of truth benefits like a ripple on a pond." And I've heard that a reoccurring theme of how much each of you have been able to, even unknowingly, you've changed the course of many people's lives through your own work. And Greg, you just mentioned the youth, and the mentoring that you're doing. I guess my question is, again, how do you facilitate, or do you have people in your immediate environment that have that kind of passion that you're all displaying and sharing? And I'd like you to just speak to that if you could.
I think that comes
next
back.
Generation.
Yeah, the next generation. I mentioned that we have a lot of volunteers, and it takes me back to leadership. there's a speaker and a writer named Simon Sinek. He talks about leadership all the time. And it's not just you have to lead by example, but you also have to lead with your heart. You have to make a connection with people. They have to be connected to what it is you feel and what your passion is. And then it's much easier to lead them into what you feel is important. I think I've been very fortunate enough in this battle. I've been very fortunate to have a number of young people in my orbit that they get fired up on surfing, but now we're using. It's not about making people surfers. It's really about using the surf to reach people. And yes, we were brought together through surfing, but our aim, our mission is actually connecting people to the land and making them feel better and letting them know that this is there for them. And I think that's really where the battle is. It's keeping enough people there. My days are numbered. I mean, I'm, not literally, but pretty much. I mean, our battles are we have more behind us than in front of us. Let's put it that way. And so we have to build these groups we got to build that army to go out and do the work that we feel is important, because we're turning it over to them very soon. And so when we bring these young people in and share our passions with them, then they get fired up. And it, again, this is that ripple in the pond, right? You drop that pebble and it ripples all over the place. And so it's not just one thing. Yes, there's healing in the water. Yes, there's, bringing people from an area of LA and showing them the water, but it's more than that. It's bigger than that. And so I hope that kind of answers your question. Yeah.
Also, in an element is, and I'm sure you have the same feeling, it's to give them a sense of courage, right?
Yeah.
To like look at this world that we're bounded by concrete and systems and rules and regulations, restrictions, and you go to the essence of being a human. You go, you know what? I'm free. I'm not gonna, I'm not saying we're lawbreakers, but sometimes you got to ask for forgiveness instead of asking for permission. And certainly when you're dealing with this vast institution, I don't know the school you're talking about. Is it LAUSD?
It is LAUSD.
Okay. Well, there you go. Like, you can't deal with this system. You got to just do what you got to do and let the pieces fall where they may. If you're doing it with the right intention, though, you're going to be okay. And I use the spring as my guide. I did what I was told to do by the springs. I have an intimate relationship, and it goes way beyond all of the institutional regulations. They're always trying to stop you and slow you down.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a product of the 60s, a little bit when you see the institutions failing us. And I don't want to get political, but I watched the hearing yesterday on TV, and there was some blonde woman that was talking about the greatest person of all time was this guy, the president, I think. And you go, these systems are wacko. They're not for human beings. We are individual human beings, and we got to stand up. And that's what it takes. And that's what you're doing. You stand up on that board. You're kind of showing,
Right.
I am somebody. I'm a person. And they have to reckon with that. It doesn't go the other way around. They're there to serve us. And if you're doing it with the right intention, you can go really far. And that's what we're trying to teach people, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe a couple responses to that question. I'm surrounded by people who are as passionate about the work that we're describing as I think as am I. What I know is requisite to do this is integrity. It's not the message, but the messenger that matters more as to whether or not I'm going to listen to that. And when you can speak from a first person experience and you can say, I do this and this is why, and that passion comes through. You don't convert everybody. I don't think that's my job. I'm not trying to be a cult leader, but I'm going to get some folks that are looking for that spark. And then that just goes around. And the day that I'm tired, the day that I'm frustrated, day that I've come back from watching the blonde lady on the TV, I find rejuvenation in that. And we didn't miscount the chairs. One of the champions in this community supposed to be here today with us, Meredith McCarthy. She now works with the sustainability program at the LA 28 Olympics. So the Olympics will be here, then the Olympics will go. But they work in this vast, interesting space of corporate sponsorship. And, you know, you see the commercial like, oh, Coca-Cola, right? I mean, it's synonymous with the Olympics. They do work trying to get into those spaces to try to bring the needs of our communities into the context of the Olympics, to make that these are investments that are going to continue to benefit our communities. And it's really an exciting space. And I think, you know, quickly chatted with Michael before we convened here today, like, got to get her back here next year to help tell that story, because it'll even be further developed. But yeah, I'm one of a merry band of warriors doing this work. And in reflection of being here at the university and with teaching, any of those teachers that were the most influential folks that I had, and many of them were teaching subjects that I was only peripherally interested in. Sorry, Lise, don't, you know, ornithology. I'm like, I love how birds taste. It's kind of like my favorite thing about birds. But my ornithology professor was just so switched on. So I followed him for 5 years till he was finally like, you need to get out of my lab, get moving. He literally did kick me out of the nest. So I think that's a part of it. And I think your question is further exploring that concept, where I was, you know, that leadership, that mentorship, that elder role, and it matters. And I think that's what we're supposed to embody. Twice. All right. I think we may be wrapping up. I had to feature my little signs because I'm so proud of them. We do have QR codes on these. We make them in-house. And it's just the easiest way to just take a photo of this thing. I'll pass it around, / they'll be available when we're done. To easily go to our website, sign up for one of our events. If you're here locally, you live in LA, come on down to the beach and join us, and put the seeds in the ground and weed those plants and have that feet in the ground, hands in the water, body in the water experience. Join Bob and his family and the community that he's built around the Springs. Again, first Saturday of every month from 10 to 3 o'clock. I've been to those events. I love going to those events. I've had the great pleasure of spending time on the beach with the Black Surfers Collective over the past many years. There's shots of, you know, my son kneeling next to me, kneeling next to Greg and his son. And it's very much a big part of our story. We talked about community. We talked about family. Talked about place. Yeah, I got what I was hoping for out of this afternoon. And I thank you all for making time, coming down here, taking time away from your other responsibilities to join us. Thank you, gentlemen.
Right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.